and I am back to read more of the Safe Sanctuary Policy under the Texas Annual Conference Administration of the United Methodist Denomination in Houston, Texas. I grew up within the Texas Annual Conference Administration, and I am a sexual assault survivor of a United Methodist minister named John Dowden, who passed away in 2012. And he was a child molester, and he was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration of the United Methodist Denomination in Houston. My mother's name was Grace Dowden, and in 2017, I obtained a recorded conversation of where I had asked my mother, Grace Dowden, directly if she had drugged me with codeine, a narcotic, so that I would not know that my father was molesting me. And her response was a boastful and proud, yeah. So my mother knew what she had gotten away with and was actually quite proud. Now, if the Texas Annual Conference is proud of the fact that they employed a clergy, John Chester Dowden, who he and his wife were capable of this. Now, if they are proud of that, I don't know. Maybe they are, maybe they aren't. I really don't know. That's on them. And I'm sure that they're more embarrassed about the fact that I'm talking about it and exposing it. However, that's not really my problem, because I don't work for the Texas Conference Administration. I'm not the bishop. I'm not on Clergy Excellence, and I'm not on the Board of Ordination. So I don't really share any responsibility in their history in employing these type of people. I was also forced to visit my kids through supervised visitation at a United Methodist Church called St. Stephen's United Methodist Church in Houston, Texas on West 43rd Street. St. Stephen's United Methodist Church is under the Texas Annual Conference Administration, which is the same administration that employed Kendall Graham, who sexually assaulted Alicia Provost Whitfield, and they also employed Michael Tabb, who brutally beat his wife and beat her beyond recognition and murdered her in the Methodist parsonage of First United Methodist Church in Troop, Texas, which has since separated and joined the Global Methodist Conference. So I guess they have to deal with that congregation. And also, the conference has employed 3 clergy who were convicted for various crimes, from wire fraud to murder and sexual assault of a minor. And so I am reading the Safe Sanctuary Policy for the Texas Annual Conference because I'm reading it from the perspective of somebody who is a survivor of sexual assault by a United Methodist clergy that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference Administration. I have not seen my kids in a year, and I was kicked out of the supervised visitation under the Domestic Relations Office. They called me. They left a voicemail. They didn't bother to send an email. They didn't bother to send me a letter. Nothing was filed in court. And the reason why was because I wasn't happy with being sexually harassed in the supervised visitation in front of my kids. Because apparently, I guess, I was supposed to be happy about visiting my kids at a United Methodist church that was under an administration that had a history of employing child molesters, and also a clergy who murdered his wife in a Methodist parsonage, Michael Tabb, who was sentenced to 55 years in prison. I was supposed to be happy visiting my kids at a United Methodist church that was under an administration that had that kind of record for employing people and placing them on assignment to lead their congregations in their administration. And on top of that, I was also supposed to be happy about being sexually harassed in front of my kids and followed to the restroom at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church, which was under the Texas Annual Conference administration. And after all, Gwen Adams, I guess, said it well, because she said that any allegations of abuse that come from me are not relevant. It's just hearsay. So this was after I had contacted the conference administration, because the Domestic Relations Office did not know that I knew the direct phone number for the Texas Annual Conference administration. And so I don't know if someone in the Texas Annual Conference administration told Gwen Adams to tell me that any allegations of abuse from me are just hearsay. They're not relevant. But anybody else, if anybody else has any allegations of abuse, it's relevant. How convenient. Anyway, so I thought I would share my irrelevant story of abuse, right? Because it's not relevant. So if it's not relevant, then surely the Texas Annual Conference isn't going to care if I just let their skeletons out of the closet, because I'm a part of that, right? I'm a part of their dirty laundry. I am their dirty laundry, right? Because I was sexually assaulted by a United Methodist minister that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration. So that makes me their dirty laundry. I think that's fair. So that is why I'm here today, to talk about their policies. Also, so that when anyone with General Conference or the Texas Annual Conference, they look up the safe sanctuary policy or the sexual ethics policy, they see my hideous looking face, the face of a sexual assault survivor from a United Methodist minister that was employed under the Texas Annual Conference administration and forced to visit her sons at supervised visitation. And now I can't see my kids because I exposed sexual harassment that I experienced visiting my sons. There's a supervised visitation at South Main Baptist Church and also at St. Stephen's United Methodist Church. So I experienced retaliation once again. And since there's nothing else that they can take from me, there's nothing to stop me from exposing it and sharing it with the public. I'm going to continue, and I am going to read the safe sanctuary policy. All right. I accidentally lost it. Let me see. Here we go. No. No, that's okay. Well, this is fun. I'm looking for it right now because I had it. That has to, okay, this is it. All right. Supervision of off-site and overnight events. Trips, retreats, and overnight requirements. All off-site and overnight events are and room assignments are approved by conference district staff or their designees. 1. There must be at least 2 screened, unrelated leaders present for all trips, retreats, and other events where the where the protected persons gather overnight at or away from the designated campus. 2, at least one of the leaders must be 25 years old or older. 3, there must be at least 2 qualified adults present for every 10 protected persons attending the event. 4, there will be at least 1 screened leader for each gender present at co-ed overnight events at single gender overnight events. At least one of the 2 screen leaders present shall be of the same gender as the protected persons who are present. 5, the person in charge of protected persons for each overnight trip and or retreat shall carry parental permission forms, including permission for emergency medical care. 6, there should be separate bathrooms, changing areas, and sleeping arrangements for each gender. 7, no adult should shower, change clothes, or use the toilet in the presence of protected persons. Bed sharing is not permitted, and bedding of any kind must be separated from one another. Guidelines for hotel-type settings. 1, separate rooms for adults and protected persons where applicable should be assigned with at least 3 participants per room, with attention paid to the age and size of the participants. 3, at least 1 adult should have a room by stairs and elevator. 4, leaders should make random monitoring hall trips and room checks at night. This should be done by 2 leaders of the same gender as those being checked. 5, a hotel should be selected. Okay. Where the rooms open to the interior of the building. An example, do not open the outside. Do not open to the outside. Guidelines for travel. 1, one adult who is at least 25 years old shall be responsible for all aspects of the trip, including carrying, All necessary documentation, including emergency contacts, at least one qualified adult must be trained in first aid and CPR. 2, local churches or parents, guardians are responsible for transportation to and from events. During events, the event leader is responsible for transportation and those driving. 3, when a protected person is transported in any vehicle, the driver must be either the protected person's parent, guardian, a screen audit, or a paid staff person who is at least 21 years old. 4, when a protected person is transported in a church-owned vehicle, the driver must be at least 21 years of age. 5, drivers must provide a valid driver's license for the vehicle being operated, as well as proof of insurance to drive the vehicle. For example, if driving a church bus, a commercial driver's license is required. Copies of each should be maintained by the event leader or event sponsor. 7, 2 unrelated adults must be in each vehicle. A list of protected persons assigned to each driver must include names and contact information for all adults chaperoning the event and provided to all drivers. 8, drivers must require that passengers wear seat belts. The number of passengers must not exceed the number of seat belts. 9, drivers should be advised of a designated route and should not deviate from it except in cases of emergency road detours. 10, drivers should not use cell phones unless required for communication with other drivers. Any use should be hands-free and in accordance with state law. Drivers should not text, message while driving. 11, when a trip is planned and the destination is expected to be 100 miles or more from the point of departure, drivers are to be listed on an approved driver list maintained by the event leader. People who regularly drive church-owned vehicles are to be listed on an approved driver list maintained by the event leader. 13, to be listed on the approved driver list, a motor vehicle record search must have been conducted, and the event leader must determine if the record is satisfactory. 14, drivers will read and sign an acknowledgement form, including that the Conference Safe Sanctuary policies have been read and will be followed. 15, parents, guardians are responsible for the transportation and safety of their protected persons to and from the facility of the organization or directly to the off-site events that do not begin or end at the facility. This responsibility includes any other passengers in their vehicle. 16, any use of a ride-share service must be scheduled by a parent or guardian and drop-off pickup confirmed by the parent guardian with the event leader. So 2 things I also wanted to bring up. One is I had a conversation years ago. I was homeless at the time. And I got in touch with Falk Landrum, who used to work in the Texas Annual Conference Administration. He was also the president of Lawnmowers College in Jacksonville, Texas, before that was back in the 80s. I don't know. It was a long time ago. And so Falk Landrum, I knew he knew who Judge Morris Hassel was, but he didn't know that I was related to him. And so Falk Landrum knew my parents. He knew my father. I had a lengthy, detailed conversation with Falk Landrum and about my experience, my irrelevant experience, right? Because any allegations from me are just hearsay. They're not relevant unless it was somebody else. Per Gwen Adams, who runs the supervised visitation program. But anyway, I digress. So I discussed with Falk Landrum my irrelevant experience being sexually abused by my father and my irrelevant experience being forced to visit my kids at a United Methodist church and sexually harassed in front of them. That was under the Texas Annual Conference Administration after having been sexually assaulted by my father as a child, who was employed under the Texas Annual Conference. Completely irrelevant, right? I mean, just like my diagnosis of post-traumatic stress disorder, that's completely irrelevant because it's probably not what anyone who wanted to make assumptions about my mental health, probably not what they wanted. So Falk Landrum told me to contact the conference office. He said they owe me, which is interesting that he would think that, because per Gwen Adams, the fact that I had to visit my kids at a United Methodist church and I am a survivor of sexual assault by a United Methodist minister employed under the Texas Annual Conference, and the fact that I have evidence of child abuse against my ex-husband, and the fact that my ex-husband is capable of dragging our son 5 feet across the carpet and physically injuring him and not seeking medical treatment. And because Carly Anthony is capable of putting his hands around our son's neck, making him think he's going to choke him and kill him. All of that's hearsay. It's not relevant because they're my sons, right? Okay. So hopefully we all understand how irrelevant that is. Anyway, so I contacted the conference office. Of course, they blew me off because after all, my experience is irrelevant. Their hypocrisy, their mistakes are irrelevant. And, my conversation with Falk Landrum meant something to me. Falk Landrum is a good man. I have conflicted opinions and feelings about all clergy now. But I have to say, Falk Landrum is a very down-to-earth man, and he was very kind and I think shocked considering what he heard from me. But I also knew he is retired, so he really doesn't have anything to say. I mean, he can't really advocate for me. And I really wouldn't want him to, because I'm quite capable of advocating for myself. And so I also wanted to talk about, I've been asked more than once by clergy, so how would you want them to resolve this? Well, I specified a little bit about that in a letter to Bishop Harvey, But I understand. I mean, I'm not relevant. My experience, who cares? Okay. I deserved to be sexually assaulted as a child. And, it's not relevant because it was me. So, I understand that I am the dirty laundry of the Texas conference. I'm a complete embarrassment to them. I totally get it at this point. So I have one opinion I have on that. And my response to one person was, well, I'm not on the board of ordination. Okay. I don't work for the conference administration. I don't approve candidates for ordination. So, we're talking about people with master's degrees. Okay. And as irrelevant as I am, right? I am the dirty laundry of the conference. Why would they listen to me? Because, yes, I've grown up around sexual predators. I have. And I know how they think. I could tell you if I was sitting next to one. And I'm pretty sure that there are a lot of clergy who have that knowledge from their own experiences, and they don't talk about it because they're afraid of judgment or how it could affect their career. I will own it. And I will lay hold of it. And I will call it what it is. And I will face it head on. And the mistakes of the conference administration regarding employing clergy who are capable of assaulting children sexually is inexcusable. And it is unforgivable. And it is in my opinion, it is their responsibility to figure out, hey, let's look at this. And perhaps we should take it into consideration the fact that Catherine Moore spoke about her father and how he would manipulate parents into letting him hold their infants in the church service. See, I wasn't even present for that. And why would I know what he did without even being present and witnessing it? Why would I know that? Because nobody knew how sick and sinister and slimy he was behind closed doors. I did. My mother did, and she helped him. If people in administration hear that and they take that into account and they're like, okay, you know what? We need to have a policy for this. We need to be more vigilant of who is holding infants in a church service. And we need to watch where their hands are going. Instead of just taking people at face value and assuming that because they're in a church service, that they're somehow closer to God than everybody, which means that surely they wouldn't touch an infant inappropriately in a church service right in front of everybody. That is asinine thinking. And I've already met with a bishop for an hour, which was just, at the time eventually I realized that it was damage control on their part. And they had no intention of taking responsibility. And they really just wanted to sweep it under the rug. Hypothetically, let's say it's not me, it's somebody else. That's more relevant because clearly I'm not. Hypothetically, let's say it's somebody with a more relevant experience of sexual assault. And and they're a survivor of sexual assault, which is not a sexual orientation and it's not a sexual preference. I just want to put that in there in case the Texas Annual Conference hasn't figured that out. It would probably, and I'm not an attorney, okay, but I'm just telling you from what I've learned from experience. I wouldn't meet with anybody in the conference administration alone to discuss any of this in a way to resolve it without an attorney present representing me to help advocate for me. And it should be at the cost of that administration. But it should be the person who is the survivor of sexual assault. It should be the attorney of their choice to represent them and advise them and help them resolve this. But I understand that the Texas Annual Conference doesn't have that kind of integrity. In fact, they would much rather allow a clergy to come back who's been previously accused of sexual harassment, and they would rather pay a clergy to come back who's been previously accused of sexual harassment than actually assist somebody who has been sexually harassed by a clergy under their administration. Or they'll work out an agreement with an attorney that leaks the information to another victim and retaliate against that victim. I can talk about this because I didn't sign an NDA. It's my story. It's my experience. And the conference, it's not on their agenda to repair damage to somebody's life who went through horrific abuse and retaliation from their administration. So the purpose in telling my story is so that my kids can see the courage that their mother has, and that she's willing to stand up for what is right. Actually, I also have a job interview coming up through a county. This job interview that I have is not something that I could have applied for if I had a criminal record. But I don't have a criminal record. There's no history of arrest. And what happened to me should have never happened. But I will make sure that people with General Conference and the Texas Annual Conference and other people in leadership and administrative roles within the United Methodist denomination see the face of a sexual assault survivor when they are Googling these policies. And if I were a clergy watching these videos and learning this for the first time, it would actually make me question the validity of my career choice as a clergy. But that's just me, because I'm not relevant. If I were a clergy watching this and learning about this for the first time, and I worked for the Texas Annual Conference Administration, and I were pastoring a church, it would also make me question the validity and the integrity and the ethics of the Texas Annual Conference, the administration that I am employed under. And it would make me question if it is wise to continue a future under this administration.